You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome back to the Cabral Concept. So good to have you with me here today. Looking forward to our Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday. We'll have a whole lot of wellness going on today, a little bit of weight loss on how to use carbohydrates in a good or bad way, right? We're always talking about, are carbohydrates good or are they bad? Well, today I'm going to share with you the truth about carbohydrates. Because right now, if you look to the media, if you looked online, if you look to a lot of the health gurus, they would tell you never touch a carbohydrate again. And if you do, make sure it's under 50 grams a day or under 25 grams a day. Or maybe if you're really pushing things, we might get to 75 to 100, but only for a short-term period of time and only on workout days. So what I want to do is I really want to bring you the truth around carbohydrates, because a lot of what we're sharing right now with people in this health and fitness-based arena is completely false. It's based on one person just recommending what another person said. That's simply based on hearsay or what they might have gotten results with in their own practice or whatever it might be for a very small segment of people. Or they might be getting results but actually causing long-term harm, and that's a lot of times what I'm worried about, because I work with the people that have had the long-term harm done to them. And if you were to look at my Instagram direct messages or cabralsupportgroup.com, where our whole community gathers online, completely free private Facebook group page, you would see all of the people affected with metabolism-based issues, digestive-based issues from doing long-term low-carb, long-term keto. And again, if you've listened to the Cabral Concept for any number of shows, you also know that we use low-carb in my practice, but we only use low-carb for a very short period of time. And the reason we only use it for a short period of time is because we know that it works, but we also know that it causes long-term harm to the body. I'm going to explain that today. So when I talk about the truth about carbohydrates, I talk about it from every perspective possible. You have to understand is I'm only after the truth. That's why you'll never see me. They say, people ask me all the time, what's your favorite supplement? What's your favorite, if you can only have one go-to health-based modality, if you can only have, there's no one. I tell people that all the time. You're never going to get that out of me. And the reason is that I always ask, for whom, what, why, how, when, where, right? It's like all of those things that I need to know. Because if we're talking about someone's health, we're not going to fit people in these tiny little boxes of what works, right? What we're going to do is concentrate on something called bioindividuality. And that's why if you hear me talking about all these specific labs, like our starter kit, right? The best place to start. Organic acids test, hair tissue mineral analysis. Neither one of the labs are ours. We just give people the ability to take control of their health. So what's the organic acid test? Well, it tells you, essentially, do you have candida overgrowth? Do you have bacterial overgrowth? How are your mitochondria functioning? Are you sensitive to oxalates? What do your neurotransmitters look like? What does your glutathione look like? How about all of your B vitamins, your vitamin C, your biotin, your coenzyme Q10, your N-acetylcysteine, right? We look at all of those things. And then the hair tissue mineral analysis, we're looking at your mineral-based levels. So if we look at all your vitamins, all your minerals, now we can give you a real recommendation on what you're short on, right? What you're deficient on, or what you might have too much of. That's how true bioindividuality works. So then if you're coming to us and saying, well, I need to lose weight, and I say, okay, but I say, why? Why do you need to lose weight? Because the issue is this. Yes, you might be more of the endomorphic body type. You might be more of the kapha body type. And if you don't know what that is, go way back to episode 900. And then from 900 on, it's not that far before, I do one show a week on different types of body types. And body types have been proven for thousands of years. If you're a practitioner or you don't necessarily believe in body types, that's okay. Just go back, look at the research. Look at the somatotypes now. We know even from modern day and all of our modern day wisdom, we still know that it works great, right? And the reason is that if you look at, I look at the whole world as Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, and it's a beautiful thing. And I look at, I was just at a play over the weekend with my two daughters. I didn't particularly enjoy the play, but they were mesmerized by it. And so for me, when I'm not interested in something, I kind of go off in my own little world. I daydream. I've always been a daydreamer. and I'm looking at the people in the play, and I'm looking at them in terms of Vata Pitta Kapha, and I see the beauty in that. And I actually really, really enjoy it. I enjoy how we're all unique, but at the same time, very, very similar, because we're all dealing with these same issues in life, right? We're all trying to live our best life. And you can just see how this person would never gain weight, no matter how many carbs they ate. And this person right here, very, very carb sensitive. And that's what I want to bring you today. So when people talk to me and they say they're going low carb because when they eat carbs, they gain weight, I say, okay, I understand that. And that's why we do that in the beginning as well. But it's only going to work for so long, and I'm going to tell you why. A lot of people, they say, oh, I need to become a fat burner. Here, trust me on this. Human physiology is meant to do two things, okay? It's meant to both burn fat, lipolysis, and burn glucose, which is just glycolysis, okay? So we don't need to use the fancy words today. We might throw them in every once in a while, but your body is great and should be great at doing both of those things, okay? So when you're at rest, I'm just sitting right now in my office. It's a quiet day, and no one's here. I'm relaxed. I'm just doing my podcast, speaking, talking about things that I love talking about. I'm not in sympathetic nervous system. I'm not in fight and flight. Just, again, enjoying myself, speaking with you on this podcast. Since I'm sitting down, I'm relaxed, and I'm just chatting right now. I'd be even more relaxed, right, if I wasn't giving the podcast. But I'm still burning predominantly body fat. So the greatest percentage of my fuel right now is coming from body fat, okay? Now, if I were to go outside and I would say, I'm late, I've got to get home within 5 minutes, and it's typically a 15-minute walk, I'd need to run, right? I'd need to run at 3 times the pace. And by doing that, then I'd be switching over into more of glucose burning, right? Because I need a faster fuel source. Well, a lot of the health gurus out there are forgetting that that's how our body operates, right? And so no matter how great you try to become it fat adapted, well, we can actually work on that. We can improve that. But if there's a fight or flight based response, or you're revving your body up to 80, 90% of your max, right? Of how quickly, how fast you can do something, of anaerobic-based metabolism, you're going to burn glucose. Your body's going to find a way because it can't tap into body fat fast enough. We know that. We've actually done the studies. We've seen the studies, even for the staunchest keto-based believers. And that's why it doesn't work great for a lot of people that are either mixed martial artists, or they're doing like a 3-minute round, a 5-minute round. You can use it cyclically, but it actually still isn't the best form of doing it. And so now people are doing like keto-based marathons. And again, isn't that my favorite thing to do? No, but it would make more sense because you're actually at more of an aerobic-based threshold, right? So you're in aerobic-based zone. Okay, so here's what I want you to look at. There's a time and place for everything. If you're someone, though, and you're not burning body fat very well, and you say, well, I'm doing that, now I'm going to go low carb because of it, I would say, no problem. Understand that. Think about how long you should do that, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. But figure out why you're most likely insulin resistant, right? So I always give people how to test their blood sugar every morning. Go back to stephencabral.com/podcast and just tune into previous episodes because I talk about this. And if you wake up in the morning and your blood sugar is in the 90s or above, right? Just using a simple glucometer, glucometer, glucometer. And if you use that and your blood sugar is in the 90s or above, your body's becoming resistant to insulin. It's keeping more blood sugar in the blood, right? It's keeping more sugar in the blood. And that means it's not getting into your cells as well. That's typically not a carbohydrate-based issue. All right, it's really not. Not if you wake up in the morning. It's a cell membrane issue. And that's what a lot of people are not talking about. But if you look into bioregulatory medicine, okay, and you start to study what's called cell membrane dynamics. Okay, I studied this many years ago when I was getting into microscopy, and we studied bioregulatory medicine. And this is going back to early 1900s, late 1800s. A lot of great bioregulatory medicine doctors, especially in Europe. So we studied a lot of the European-based doctors. And again, this is not something that you're going to study in school. This is all either postdoctoral work or post-certification work, whatever you might be doing. But it's great because you can look into all the great natural hygienists and bioregulatory doctors. Okay, so we're talking about cell membrane dynamics. We're talking about your body's ability to let glucose into all of your cells, right? So you have about 40 trillion cells, okay? 100 trillion bacteria in the gut, about 40 trillion cells. Well, your cells, a lot of these cells, especially red blood cells, are allowing glucose to enter them. Well, what happens if, though, the receptors on the cells are blocked? Here's what happens. They don't allow insulin, which is the key, to unlock the cell, basically the door, to allow glucose in. So your body, and you can test this, again, you can run insulin on your blood work, and you can run your hemoglobin A1C. We do this on the thyroid adrenal hormone test, which is easily the best weight loss test in the world, best metabolism test in the world. It's called the thyroid adrenal hormone test. I'm going to link that up today. Actually, it's always linked up. Just go to stephencabral.com/1055 for all of today's show notes and links. stephencabral.com/1055 in case I forget to mention it at the end. So here's what happens, though. For a lot of people, because of hormonal-based issues, because of eating too many processed carbs for too long, more of the kapha-based body type, as well as, and almost no one mentions this, too many oxidized fats. So we always talk about people becoming insulin resistant and becoming type 2 diabetic because of raising their blood sugar too often. And that can happen because if your sugar can't get into the cells and you're not someone like an ectomorph vata body type that burns up all their sugar all the time because their metabolism's more towards fight or flight all the time, right? Then what happens is this. Your body, your insulin your pancreas, let's step back. Your pancreas is asked to produce more insulin. And the more insulin it starts to pump out into the blood, the more cells can become resistant to that insulin. It's called insulin resistance. Now, since it's gone quiet or dark to allowing insulin to unlock that cell membrane, more sugar stays in the bloodstream. Now, to combat that, in conventional medicine, they typically give you more insulin and more insulin and more insulin, whether you're type 1 diabetic or type 2 diabetic. There's a couple ways we can control this. One, by carbohydrate intake. I'm going to be talking about that. And the second way, though, is actually repairing those cell membranes. Now, easier said than done, of course, always, right? But here's the thing. And this is always why you have to give your body time to heal. If you don't see results in a week, that's okay. That's understandable, right? Here's why. Those red blood cells, how long does it take to turn them over? If you've been listening to the Cabral concept, you know that answer to that. 120 days, right? Anywhere between 90 to 120 days, but the typical life cycle is 120 days, and it should be, because you don't want those cells turning over too quickly. That's entropy, or the aging-based process. So what we have is every 4 months the cells turn over. Now, it's weighted the most on a hemoglobin A1C, HbA1c test. And again, thyroid adrenal hormone runs that. You want your hemoglobin A1c at a 5.6 or below. It's okay. Not too low, but below that, right? In the 5s, but below 5.6. And again, you want your insulin in a healthy zone. Somewhere between 2 and 6 is typically normal, although the range is way up to a 10. And other labs is even higher. Hemoglobin A1c, it might be up to a 5.8 or 6 or even higher. But we're looking at optimal. Okay. So here's what it means, is that you can test your hemoglobin A1c and even insulin more often, but you can test those every 90 days, every 12 weeks. That's what we do in my practice. And the other thing is you can test your glucose, though, on a daily basis, because you won't see your hemoglobin A1c move as much for about 12 weeks, but you will see your glucometer move every couple weeks if you're making your progress. That's how you'll know that in the future, which your hemoglobin A1c is an average of the last 3 months or so. So really, really great way to do it. But let me get back on this. Yes, it's from eating too many processed carbs and maybe drinking too much fruit juice or that you might thought was healthy, right? Because when you drink orange juice in the morning or you drink your apple juice in the morning, here's the issue. It's just straight sugar. So when we talk about good carb, bad carb, we're talking about bad carb in that case. You are not getting the vitamins and minerals and all the great essentials from that juice because it's been heated up. It's been processed. If you want a fresh glass of orange juice, honestly, it's not that difficult, but you should squeeze it yourself, okay? And they make very easy kitchen-based tools to juice your own orange if you want in the morning. But I don't recommend that orange juice on an empty stomach, which is going to spike blood sugar if you're someone more prone to weight gain, okay? I'd recommend more of doing something such as the daily fruit and vegetable blend mixed with a little bit of water, right? To get all of your nutrients in there. Not going to have all the sugar with it. Or do a fresh pressed green juice. You can even add a little bit of carrot or beet for a little bit of sweetness if you'd like. Add a little ginger for extra credit, about a thumb of ginger, right? Not a ton of it, but a thumb. So really, really great thing to do. But let's get back to one other thing, and that is oxidized fat. Almost no one talks about why people become insulin resistant based on oxidized fat. And here's why. So your cell membrane is made up of hard fats and soft fats, okay? So we're going to call these your omega-3s and your omega-6s. Well, your omega-6s, let's refer to them as sterols or hard fats. And let's call your omega-3s and some of your polyunsaturated fats as more of the softer fats, okay? Well, if there's too many sterols, it can not allow for as great of osmosis through that cell. That's cellular respiration, okay, oxygen in, but also glucose in. And it's also waste out. So these cells can actually become more anaerobic, more lactic acid-based producing. And again, no one ever talks about that in terms of cellular respiration and fatigue, etc. But we're talking about that today. So when we go over this, we look at, well, there can be multiple reasons of why someone could become insulin resistant. Multiple reasons, many, many reasons, okay? I'm going to give you two, though. The first one is too many processed carbs. Asking your body to keep pumping insulin from that pancreas over and over and over all day long. That's why I've talked about in the past. 3 meals per day. Go back to that previous podcast on that, right? How many meals per day should you eat? And I give you the reason why. I give you the reason why to do that, right? I'll never tell you what to do without telling you why. And the second reason is oxidized fats. Well, what are oxidized fats? It's cooking in oil, right? Too long in our culture, we've been cooking in oil. Better to add your olive oil or smashed up avocado or your healthy fat afterward, but not heat it up. If people say, well, can I use grass-fed butter? Can I use a lot of coconut oil? Can I use these things to cook in? Well, there's a couple schools of thought. And again, I'm always about the truth. The truth is this, is that, yes, they're not going to oxidize to the same degree, but you're still cooking in a heated fat. There will be some oxidation, but not as much. And those contain a lot of sterols. Do I think you can have a little bit of coconut oil? Absolutely. Do I think you can have some ghee? Absolutely. Or some grass-fed butter? Sure, if you'd like to. Yes, you can. What about roasted nuts, though? That has oxidized fat. No one's typically talking about that. I'm more of a recommender of sprouted nuts or raw-based nuts, right? Raw sprouted organic nuts are the way to go if you're going to have those. Very, very lower in phytic acid, lower in lectins, easier to digest. Chew them up to a paste or make them into your own natural nut butter before consuming. That would be fine. But what I want you to always remember is a lot of this has to do with oxidative fat. All right, but let's get back on that carbohydrate train right now. So if you're someone that's dealing with a lot of weight gain issues, and I'm going to talk about digestion in a moment and fatigue in a moment before we end the show, about truth about carbohydrates, is that yes, your body, at least temporarily, has become insulin resistant, or let's call it carb resistant. That means if you're someone prone to gaining weight if you increase carbs, what we need to do is work on metabolism and cell membrane dynamics. I can't recommend the thyroid adrenal hormone test enough. And ideally, run that with a starter kit. Run that with the organic acids test and the hair tissue mineral analysis. You do that, I mean, you've got so much data. You want to get even more? Run the, I was just about to say food sensitivity test, which would be great, but not, you can run that. But run the omega-3 test. Now you know about your omega-6s to your omega-3s. The omega test is so overlooked. And it's one of the easiest things to correct. Honestly, people debate all the time. Do you need omega-3s, not need omega-3s? There's no debate. You run the lab, and it tells you if you need them or not. It's like vitamin D. The vitamin D is also tested on the thyroid adrenal hormones. It's easily one of the best tests out there. Do you need vitamin D? Yes or no? The test tells you. It doesn't matter if it's summertime and you say, oh, no, the sun's out at summertime, I don't need vitamin D. That's not true. That is literally not true. I used to believe that, but not when I started testing thousands of people, and like basically 3 out of 100 came back for good vitamin D during the summer. And the reason is that you're not outside most likely every day or 4 days a week getting a full body tan. That's the way that you get vitamin D. If you're just because you're outside and your hands or your forearms or face are exposed to vitamin D during lunchtime, that's not enough to get your vitamin D levels up. So you still need vitamin D. Okay, I'm going to get back on target here. So what about if you are insulin resistant, you're understanding that your cells need 3 to 4 months to repair themselves. Okay, what we do is we do something like the 21-day Dr. Ball detox or a lower carb diet, mainly just vegetables, and then we begin to ease back in those carbohydrates. And if you want a full show on this, go to stephencabral.com/podcast, and it goes how not to retox after a detox, or how to do a functional medicine detox, or another one is how to transition off a low-carb diet. All of those will teach you how to basically introduce carbs back into your diet, because you do need them. If not, you literally become carb resistant, which means you won't be able to metabolize carbs. And you want to be able to metabolize carbs, because who doesn't want to be able to eat some starches in the future, right? Some sweet potatoes, some yams, or other things as well. Like, what about fruits? Fruit, when I talk about the only proven anti-cancer diet, are fruits and vegetables. So if you're not eating at least berries, which is how to transition, right? So you're doing mainly vegetables, non-starchy ones. You get into your fruit. All of the berries first. They're low glycemic. Why does the glycemic index mean? What does it mean? Well, it means that it won't spike your blood sugar as quickly and as easily. So when you eat berries, a lot of it is skin. That skin is fiber, and it's going to slow the sugar ingestion into your body. So you start with what? The cherries, the blackberries, the blueberries, the raspberries. Those are the ones to start with. And then, yes, you can do some strawberries. If you can find them clean, you can find them organic. And then you're going to do things like kiwi, and you're going to do grapefruit, right? A lot of the citrus-based ones. And then you can start to do green apples, and you see, how does my body react? But you also, again, listen to that show on how to transition off a low-carb diet and how not to retox after a detox, and when to have carbs after your workout. Like, there's so many shows. Just go back to stephencabral.com/podcast. I do invite you to go back, listen to the previous podcasts, take your time. Again, listen on the way to work. Listen while you're taking your afternoon lunchtime walk. Listen on the way home, and give yourself a functional medicine education that you can then pass on to family, pass on to friends, pass on to your children so that they know these things. And this, again, we just learn by repetition. So I try not to repeat a lot of the topics, but I might talk about them in a little different way. So we always learn by, different cues. And that's what I'm trying to do here as well. So again, I invite you to listen to the podcast of how to transition and move back in, but we all need carbohydrates. It's these carbohydrates that keep us dis-ease free, and they also add good prebiotics to our gut so that the healthy microbiome allows us to have proper brain function, proper mood function, immune function. I mean, we need these things. We can't overlook them, and that's why we can't eliminate carbs in the long term from our diet. You will always, always, always be making a mistake if you do that. So now let's move in the digestion realm. So many people say, I don't eat carbohydrates, can't eat any fruit, can't eat any vegetables, because I get bloating, I get cramping, I get skin rashes, I get joint pain, I get headaches, I get migraines, you name it, right? You get the digestive issues and you get the health issues. Here's the problem. Here's the problem with that. I don't disagree with you. I do agree always with your story. When I listen to people's, whether you're working with a health coach, whether you're working with myself, or you're running a lab through equilibriumnutrition.com, we don't discount your story. We completely believe you. But that does not mean that that's normal. If you can eat vegetables or fruit because you gain weight or you get digestive issues or joint pain, headaches, skin rashes, here's what it means. Again, everyone has a food sensitivity or two. There's no doubt about that. You run a food sensitivity test, you can see a lot of these things from an IgG perspective. Again, you always want to run the IgG for the skin rashes and the delayed reaction. So again, just go to equilibriumnutrition.com, click on the labs tab. You'll be able to read all about these. I won't go through them today. But here's what I want you to remember. These are human-based foods. These are human foods. We were mainly gatherers, not hunters, okay? We were hunter-gatherers, mainly gatherers, because it would be much easier to pick berries, much easier to pick vegetables, and all these other things than it would be to go after and kill something in nature that's much faster than you, and that's basically they're prey, right? So they know to stay away. So that's the truth of the matter. And you can ask any real hunter, how easy would it be for you to kill an animal with, let's just say, no camouflage, with no weapon, and with no technology, right? So let's just say you went out into the woods. It's just you, right? You've got no real claws, no real fangs, and you're going out into nature. What could you actually hunt and kill? Just say, I'm not going to answer the question. Just you answer that for yourself. If you've watched any of these shows with experienced hunters and they're put in the woods, what do they catch? What are they really catching? And I'm going to do a whole show on the carnivore diet and the meat-only diet in the future. But think about it. Think about it. What are you catching? What do they always go for? Worms, grubs, beetles, grasshoppers, because they can catch those things. That's their protein source, right? Every once in a while, they might be able to grab a rock, fashion a spear, and kill something. You're not killing something at 100 yards away, though. Even the greatest javelin thrower in the world is not killing something from 100 yards away. It's really not happening. Maybe on a lucky shot, right? But animals have much greater instinct as well. Now, would we have greater instinct a million years ago? Of course. But that doesn't mean that we have the tools on our body to be a great hunter. We simply don't. We run on two legs. That already puts us at a disadvantage. We can't fly. That puts us at a disadvantage. And we don't have any real weapons, right? We don't have any real fangs or claws. We don't have any antlers. We don't have any horns. We used to have, yes, probably stronger jaws, things like that, true. But again, and then think about it without fire. So again, these are things that I just want you to think about. Think about, because you don't have to agree with me. I want you to know that you don't have to agree with everything on the Cabral concept. That's not the point of the show. The point of the show is just to get you thinking. It's different perspectives, okay? Now, for digestion, if you can't eat these foods, it does not mean to stay away from them. It means there's something wrong with your gut microbiome. A bacterial overgrowth, a fungal overgrowth, H. pylori, potentially even parasites. If you have digestive issues, unlike the thyroid adrenal hormone that I spoke about, I would have you run an organic acids test and stool test. You can run a food sensitivity test if you'd like, but that will tell you what's going on with your gut that you can't eat these foods. Remember, if human foods, produce, fruits and vegetables, cause you bloating or wellness-based issues, joint pain, migraines, skin rashes, etc., run an organic acids test and stool test. You need to know why these things are happening. These are not normal, because if you can't eat anti-cancer foods and foods that help to prevent heart disease and stroke and all the top causes of death, that's not good in the long run. In the short term, if you don't eat carbs, yes, then you won't get bloating. There's not too many things that are fermentable, right? If you eat a higher fat diet, fat's not really fermentable. I understand why it works, right? And people could say, well, that helps people in my practice. And I would say, yes, it does in the short term, but to the detriment of their long-term health. So if you're a health practitioner, please do it in the short term while you're helping people heal in the long term. So maybe they need to do the Candida bacterial overgrowth protocol. And in the beginning, we give people a sensitive gut guide, and it's a limited version. Now, there's still 50 carbs on there from different fruit, from different vegetables, and different starches, but it's not everything in the world. And then you begin to reintroduce and say, how do you feel? Positive result, neutral result, keep it in. Negative result, we take it back out because we don't want people to suffer either. But the long term, again, 12 to 16 weeks it takes to heal that gut completely. The long term is what we care about, okay? The last part is this: tiredness, fatigue after a carbohydrate meal. Well, this means a couple things. One is that you might be more of a fast oxidizer. You might be someone that breaks down your food at a much faster rate. For those people, we just need to focus more on the macros. It doesn't mean that you don't need any carbohydrates. It means that, one, you're eating too many processed carbs. Maybe the majority of your meal was pasta or a lot of white rice or a lot of sauces that are higher glucose, right? Or higher glycemic. What we need to do is make sure that there's enough protein and that there's enough fiber and that there's enough fat to slow that digestion in order for you not to feel fatigued 30 minutes to 60 minutes after a meal. And we always go with protein first. A lot of people that are hungry an hour later or tired an hour later, they didn't have enough protein in their meal. Now, then you can choose your base vegan-based source. Choose your favorite vegan-based source. Your favorite fish or meat or egg, whatever you would like. Okay? But make sure that you add a little bit about that. How much? Just whatever you're doing now, just add double and see if that works. And if it doesn't work to combat the tiredness, well, that tiredness we see all the time in our practice, specifically after lunch. And the reason is that your body has weak digestion, especially during lunch. Couple reasons. One is you're more in the fight or flight. Your body's too revved up. Can't break down the meal well enough. So what we say is, all right, you have fatigue during lunch. Try a second smoothie at lunch. You're not going to do this for the rest of your life. This is just a test. Do it for 3 days. Okay? If you have energy after that smoothie, you drink it over the course of an hour, it just means that you didn't have to use any energy to digest lunch. Now we know that it's weak digestion because you couldn't break down that big meal. So what we're going to do is not have you do a smoothie every day for lunch. What we're going to have you do is eat easier to digest foods for lunch, as well as use digestive enzymes. So we have a great enzyme called the daily digestive. And the daily digestive will use between 1 and 3 with that meal at the start of the meal. And it will allow you to faster or better break down that food, right? So first we're looking at, is it too many processed carbs, too much rice, too much pasta, even too many potatoes right at the meal? Or second, we're looking at is not enough protein, right? So add a little bit more protein in the meal. And third, we're looking at, is it weak digestion? And we can use enzymes with that. We can use ginger tea with it. We can use digestive bitters to help with that digestive-based process. So remember, carbohydrates are never the enemy. A lot of the times it comes down to, are you eating whole food carbohydrates? Meaning vegetables that you see in nature, fruit that you see in nature, and sweet potatoes, yams that you see in nature, right? Or is it more of the processed variety? Things that come from a box, right? Or a bag, or like with a label on it, right? And that's kind of more of a giveaway that those carbohydrates are going to be more processed, right? So like if you have a rice pasta, it's always going to be a higher glycemic. Doesn't mean never to eat it, but it's going to be higher glycemic than if you would eat wild rice that you see growing in nature. So if you're having trouble with carbohydrates, I would invite you to fix the root cause, right? So the truth about carbohydrates is this, is that if it's causing you an issue right now, fatigue, wellness-based, digestive-based, or weight gain, fix the root cause that we went over today. And then after that, slowly begin to add in carbohydrates till you find your carbohydrate tolerance, right? The total carbohydrate load that your body can take. And for someone that's more prone to weight gain, more of the kapha body type, endomorph body type, well, you'll have it more so at breakfast in your smoothie, right? And you'll have it more so after a workout, but maybe you won't have it with dinner. And we teach this in the Integrative Health Practitioner program. And if you're someone that does get more fatigued, you're going to have less processed carbs. You're going to eat more of the sweet potatoes and yams. You're going to have a little bit of olive oil with it. You'll have your protein, and you'll make a nice meal out of that. And if you're someone with digestive issues, well, you're going to start with more of the cooked carbohydrates, right? So you're going to take your broccoli, and you're going to take your asparagus and your bok choy and your spinach or whatever it might be, and you're going to cook it first to make it easier to digest. And then by doing that, you're still getting your carbs. And then after a while, and maybe during the summertime, you might start to introduce more of those salads again and see how you do, but maybe not make the salad bigger than your head, right? Maybe you have a cup or two to start because it's sometimes the total load rather than just the smaller amount to start with. So again, my recommendation is the truth about carbohydrates is that we all need to be eating fruit and vegetables. What we need to do is correct the underlying root cause that's prevented you from eating these great carbohydrates, which are meant to be an energy source for the body. If there's an issue, correct that first, then begin to ease them into your body, and you will find the amount of carbohydrates that you can tolerate in a given day. And it might change for a workout day, and it may change for a regular day on non-workouts. I'll go more into that in the future as well, so stay tuned for upcoming Cabral Concept podcast. I appreciate you tuning in as always. Thank you so much. And if this show was helpful, please do feel free to pass along to anyone you believe it could serve. Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or a lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests, or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE LIFE /labs.